everyone, welcome back to Destined to Relax. For those of you who are brand new, my name is Alicia. I'm 38-year-old single mom of three amazing teenagers, and I love to talk about everything cruising. So the last video had to do with how to budget and making sure that you're not missing some of those costs that may not be top on our minds. This week, we're going to talk more about how to choose what cruise to take next. So I'm going to break down my entire cruising planning system step by step, especially as a solo traveler on Carnival Cruise Lines. So if you've ever gone onto Carnival's website and thought, oh my goodness, there are way too many ships, way too many itineraries, I have no idea where to begin. This video is going to be for you. So I cruise fairly often, and over time I've developed a system that helps me avoid wasting money, avoid boring itineraries, and avoid cruises that just don't really match my vibe. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I do. So that begins with picking the correct ship, choosing the right itinerary, and then researching ports the smart way, along with some of the mistakes that I used to make so you don't have to. So we'll start with the foundation of everything, picking the ship. Before I even look at ports or dates or prices, I always start with the ship because the ship is basically your floating city. And as a solo traveler, that matters a lot. You wouldn't think so, but it really does. The first thing that I will ask myself is, do I want a big ship or do I want a smaller ship? Carnival has everything from the older, smaller ships to the massive Excel class ships like the Mardi Gras, the Celebration, and the Jubilee. So here's how I think about it as a solo cruiser. The bigger ships, they have more people, which means there's more things going on. There's more options if you're feeling social, and it's easier to blend in and not feel so alone. But then you have the smaller ships. They're a lot less overwhelming. It's easier to learn your way around where everything is at. Sometimes it's quieter, and it can feel more intimate or maybe more isolating depending on the crowd. So if I know that I want nightlife and comedy and the deck parties and lots of food options, I tend to lean on the bigger side. But if I'm wanting a slower pace or more time at sea, fewer distractions, then I'll probably consider a smaller or a mid-sized ship. Entertainment. As a solo traveler, entertainment is non-negotiable. So I like to look for multiple comedy shows, live music in the different venues, the production shows, and even the game shows or the interactive events. Because here's the thing, when you're traveling solo, entertainment isn't just entertainment. It's a social outlet, it's a way to fill in your evenings, and it's a way to be around people without that really awkward small talk. So if a ship only has one main show per night and not much else, I would usually pass. And then we've got the food options. And of course, we've talked before that food is very available when you're cruising, but it matters even more when you're cruising solo. So I look at what dining options are included. Is there a variety or am I going to get bored by day 3? Carnival, I usually don't have that option, or I don't have that issue. It is wonderful for casual food spots, late night options, and then quick bites if you're not feeling like sitting through a really long dinner in the main dining room, or known as the MDR. And as a solo traveler, I love having places that I can eat quickly, places where sitting alone feels normal, and options well beyond the main dining room. And then you have the solo friendliness. Carnival doesn't have dedicated solo cabins on most ships, so it's more about the vibe. So I look at, does the ship attract younger cruisers? Is it known for being social and lively? Are there a lot of activities where solo cruisers just naturally mix in? Things like trivia or the comedy shows, deck parties. There's different themed nights, like your 80s night or Motown or your white night. These all make it way easier to cruise alone without feeling awkward. Some of the reviews from other solo cruisers are things that I'll look at as well. And this is huge. So I specifically will search Reddit. There are Facebook cruise groups, comments on YouTube videos, and I'll look for phrases like cruised solo, as a solo traveler, went alone. I don't care as much about general complaints. I mainly care about, did the solo travelers have fun? Did they feel comfortable? Did they say they'd want to do it again? Once I narrow down a few ships, then I'll move over to the itineraries. So this is where strategy really kicks in. I like to look at the port variety. So I'll ask myself, am I wanting to visit places that I've never been? Or do I want to go back to places that I know I already love? Usually, I want a mix. So one or two familiar ports, and then usually a port or two that's brand new or just seems really interesting. So if an itinerary hits 3 ports that all feel the same to me, I tend to be less interested. And then we have sea days. Sea days are absolutely crucial for solo travelers. Do I want to relax? Or am I wanting that constant movement and exploration and the hustle and bustle? Usually, more sea days will mean more activities on the ship, more chances to meet people, and more time to enjoy what I paid for. So, for the shorter cruises, I'm okay with fewer sea days. For longer cruises, I want them. So, the length of the cruise changes everything. You have the 3 to 4 day cruises that are more the party vibe. They're much faster pace, and you're definitely not going to get as much rest. 5 to 7 day cruises are more of my sweet spot. I'm usually on the 7 day end of that. It gives me enough time to settle in, and there's enough variety without getting burnt out. And then you have the 8+ days. So those are going to be a lot more relaxed. There's going to be more of a routine that you build within your vacation. And it gives you more of an opportunity to explore more, especially on the ship itself. So as a solo traveler, I usually am at like between 6 and 8 days. Those are usually my sweet spot unless I'm intentionally wanting to do a longer trip. Now, when looking at pricing, and I know we kind of talked about that on my last video, I also like to look at the price per day, not just the overall cost. So I'll look at the total cost, divide it by the number of days. And that tells me if I'm actually getting value. A cheaper cruise isn't always cheaper if it's shorter, if it has fewer ports, or if it has fewer amenities. You got to think about the vibe you want. And this is the most underrated factor. I like to ask myself, do I want chill or do I want the hyped up and energetic? Am I wanting party or peaceful? Do I want to be more social this time around or do I want to be more introverted? And certain itineraries will naturally attract families, the partiers, the older cruisers, or even the first timers. Matching the itinerary to your mood is everything and will make or break your cruise. So, once I've picked an itinerary, then I'll deep dive into the ports that we would be attending. First off is safety. I like to look up the common tourist areas, places to avoid, and then the basic street smarts for that area. I don't panic, but I do like to prepare. And then I look at the culture. What makes this port unique? Is it food or history or music? And this will help me decide if I want a day where I do an excursion like through the cruise line, or do I just want to explore on my own as like a self-guided day, or do I just want to wander around? And then if the port is known for their beaches, I'll look at, are they public or private beaches? How far away are they from the port? What type of water conditions are they? Because not all beach ports were made equal. And then I always look at transportation. Can I walk from the port? Or are the taxis reliable? Is Uber available? This matters even more when you're going solo. And then we look at excursions. So if you decide that you want to have an excursion at a particular port, I tend to look beyond Carnival's website. So there are a lot of local tour companies. There's TripAdvisor and Viator. And then I'll check the reviews from the solo traveler specifically. Then we've got Google Map photos. And this is one of my biggest hacks. I'll go onto Google Maps and click for real photos. Look at the streets, look at the beaches and the neighborhoods. And this will tell me way more than polished marketing photos. So then I'll research the entertainment. And no, not YouTube cruise videos. I like to research the local music, the cultural performances, any festivals that might be going on. And I do this outside of cruise YouTube videos, especially for copyright safe content and to get the most accurate information. This will give me more authentic expectations. So I told you I was going to let you know about some of the things I used to do wrong or maybe not the most effectively. So I'll kind of go into that next. I was notorious for booking too fast. I used to see a good price and I would panic book. So now I'm more likely to sleep on it. I'll compare other options and then double checking flights because where I live, the closest port is Seattle, which most of the time Seattle cruises with Carnival go up to Alaska. I like to be down south, usually in the Caribbean. So a flight is just absolutely necessary for me. Not checking the weather. Now, weather can make or break a cruise. I'm looking at, is it hurricane season? Are there extra rainy seasons, either where I'm going to be embarking from or any of the ports that we would be going to? Or, um, and then also like just what the average temperature is. Are we talking 65 degrees or are we talking 90 degrees? That makes a huge difference for a lot of reasons. One of the other things I would do is not comparing multiple dates. Prices can change drastically just going within a few days or a week, or even you could look at a different departure port if you are open to other ships. So I always like to compare. And then forgetting travel days. This, I have been extremely lucky, but I've had some very close calls. So now I'm always factoring in flying in early. I'll at least consider flying out a day after the cruise comes back into port. And then, of course, considering hotel costs. Especially as a solo traveler, less stress is definitely worth the money. So that's kind of my system for planning a Carnival cruise as a solo traveler. From the ship to the itinerary to the ports, and then going into the mistakes that I admit that I've learned the almost hard way. but it scared me enough to make some changes. So if you're cruising solo or you're thinking about it, planning intentionally makes all the difference. So on the next video, I'm going to be planning my shore excursions, what I book, what I skip, and why. If you found this helpful, you already know what you need to do. Make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you know when my next video drops. And if you cruise solo too, drop in the comments your biggest planning tip. I would love to know what I could be doing better and making sure that everyone else knows the ins and outs of having a stress-free or at least less stress planning environment. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you on the next video.